what's up, everyone? This is Ren with Dance with My Demons podcast. Are you looking to start a podcast? Then let Buzzsprout be the way. Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show. Podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show could be online and listed on all the major podcast platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and many more, just within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. With Buzzsprout, you can create something great together. Follow the link in the show notes, which lets Buzzsprout know we sent you. Buzzsprout will send you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and it's sent after a second paid invoice. And it helps support our show as well. Buzzsprout, the best way to create a great and professional podcast. Later.
Hey, what's up? I'm Ren, the host of Dance with My Demons podcast. Are you looking to start a podcast? Then let Anchor be the way. With Anchor's creation tools, you can record and edit right from your smartphone and personal computer. Anchor offers 100% free hosting and distribution, so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Anchor allows you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Who doesn't want to make money, right? Anchor has everything you need to make a successful podcast all in one place. Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast ever. Just download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And don't forget to check out my podcast at anchor.fm/dancingwithmydemons69 and on Spotify, Dancing with My Demons. See you all soon. Later. Bye.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ren with Dance with My Demons podcast. This is episode 14, and I've entitled it Triggers. Here Comes the Crash. But before I get started with this episode, I just wanted to take a moment because I'm currently recording it, and it's now 9/11, and it's the 19th anniversary since 9/11 happened. So I just wanted to pay my respects to those lost, and just to say that, I never forgot, and to all the families who continue to go on after all their loved ones have passed. My thoughts and prayers continue to be with you all. Now, with that being said, I want to get into this episode. This episode is about triggers and what causes either a manic episode to come about or even a depressive episode to come about. In this case, for me, I'd like to speak mainly about the depressive episode because I'm currently coming off of a pretty long run of being on a manic, wave, which has probably ran for about 2 months now, and currently on the crash, I guess you would say. But anyway, I suppose for me, triggers can come in so many different forms. I live so rigidly by my routine and how I go about my life on an everyday basis. So, like, the slightest little changes can really, it can trigger me. It can set things off. It can either set me on a manic episode, or it could literally set me off into a depressive episode. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a terrible or, sad thing that triggers you. It could just be a change in your routine, a change in the way you do things. But at the same time, it also could be something big that can trigger you. It could be a loss. It could be a death in a family. It could be something that, went wrong in your personal life, whether it be in a relationship or, something with your kids, or even something that may have happened at work. All these little things play into it and can really set you off, good or bad. It could really set you off. So it's something to be very mindful of, I guess, when you're dealing or managing your bipolar or your mental illness, is to kind of be, as much as you can, be very self-aware of the things going on around you. The strangest little things can really impact you. Even the things that you watch on TV or the things that you see or hear on the radio, if it's something with a negative tone and you're constantly around it, or you're seeing it or listening to it, it can really have an impact on you. And if you're somebody like myself who is bipolar, stuff like that can really, it can really throw you off and can really mess with you personally. It can really set you off on a, pretty, depressive mode in my case. So I try to be as mindful as possible of the things that I do in my surroundings, or if I happen to be in a negative environment, I try to be very aware and limit the amount of time I am either watching it or listening to, whatever I might be listening to, and anything that might trigger me or cause me to maybe go into a depressive mood, I try to be mindful of, as best as I can. And sometimes it's not always as simple as that. Sometimes it literally can just creep up on you. But at the same time, I always try as best as I can to be mindful of it. I occasionally from time to time I have conversations with people, especially now that the podcast has been going on now for over a month now. I get questions from family members and even friends, and now even audience members, people that I've listened to have reached out to me. I have questions in regards to themselves and in regards to myself, and I guess they're trying to see if there's a relation or if there's a type of connection to what they're going through, comparing it to myself. And triggers seems to be a big thing right now. And another thing that affects me, and it has for quite some time, and I am aware of it, it's the seasonal change. It's going from, the summer into the winter. The winter months definitely seem to be the more, I guess, depressive months, I guess you would say, for me. And I guess a lot of that has to do with more of the isolation. You're less outside, and you're less doing outdoorsy type of things and things that would constantly stimulate you. You're kind of, locked in more because of the winter months. I guess in this particular year, being 2020, and everybody's obviously being affected by COVID, it might alter things somewhat, because to some extent or another, we've all been in lockdown. And so it could possibly alter my mood somewhat, or it could possibly continue to be more of the same, being that COVID is here and it's been more of a very, strict and rigid schedule on how we do things because of COVID, and we're not able to do things the same way as we used to. So I guess to some extent I am curious to see how this winter will be for me. But right now I know, like, I'm going through a down cycle, and it's been tough. I know for myself personally, there's been a little bit, definitely more of an isolation for myself. But I think at the same time, it's a much needed isolation. Sometimes when I'm surrounded by so much, I guess, stimulants or things that kind of can trigger me, and, I do have to pull back a little bit. I do have to kind of get my bearings again, because I can't speak for others, but I know for myself, when you can easily be overstimulated by things, whether it be, the things that you're doing or where you're at, or just the things that are going on in your everyday life, it can be a little overwhelming. And I know for me personally, in my mind, and I guess in my brain, for some reason when I'm overstimulated, everything just seems louder, or everything just seems like more or kind of bigger. And I know when I find myself in these situations, I definitely feel a need to retreat more into myself. It's my way of kind of getting balance again and putting things back to as much of an even kind of keel as I can get it. And so it's just kind of my way of dealing with things. I know it might not always be as understandable to others, but I know for me, when I'm overstimulated or things are going on or there's much going on around me, or there might even be a lot of changes going on around me, these things can definitely, play into my mind and trigger me. It can really affect me. So when I'm overstimulated or there's a lot going on, I definitely do retreat, and I definitely go inward, and I isolate myself more. But it's definitely a much needed isolation that I have to do for myself to keep myself evenly balanced, because I think, at least for myself, the worst thing that you can go through is to be triggered, but you don't really do anything about it. So it can go to the extremes. You could either, the trigger can cause you into a real manic episode, or it can cause you to, do some irrational things, whether it be spending or just gambling, or it could even be drug related, or drinking, or sexuality, or just things that you wouldn't typically do. It can trigger you to do these things. And at the same time, these triggers can have the opposite effect. It can cause you to go into depressive mode, where you're more isolated, or you're quieter, or you're more reserved, or you have those days where you just don't want to get out of bed, or you just curl into a ball and just want to be still and not be around anything or anyone. It can definitely have those effects on you. I know it has for me personally as well. I guess I've been very fortunate lately to kind of help me manage, or kind of cope, or kind of get through it as best as I can, is work. Right now, work has been a big part of my life, and it's so busy, what I do in my regular everyday life, that it keeps me active, it keeps me going, it keeps me from falling deeper into that depressive mode. And at the same time, I've had some really great recent news. My son, which you've heard me speak about in an episode, is about to become a father, and I'm very excited about this because we just found out that it's going to be a boy. So I'm very excited. I'm going to be a grandpa to a young baby boy who will be coming soon, January. So I'm very excited about that. So that's definitely helped me to keep me uplifted. But you can't always rely on these things to keep you going. It's still going to affect you. They will be temporary, I guess, fixes, but they aren't the all-out, fix. And is there truly a fix? Not really. It's something you will continue to manage. And I'll say this again, there is no cure for mental illness at this point. There isn't. It's something that you manage. It's something that you manage, with a lifestyle. It's medication. It's, your doctor visits, your therapist, your nutrition, your sleep, your routine, how you live your everyday life, the people you surround yourself, the environment you keep, all these things play into it. So it's always very important to me to constantly be, self-evaluating and constantly monitoring myself. And if I am in situations that aren't the greatest, or they're possibly triggering negative, feelings, or negative, I guess moments, that might be causing me to go into depressive mode, I definitely try to be mindful of it and pull back from it, because I know that it will affect me in a not great way. And I try to avoid that as best as I can. And I don't always know if, the people around me are always aware of it, and I don't always speak about it openly unless I'm generally, asked. But I know I purposely pull myself away, and I am mindful of it, because if I'm feeling that way, I know it's because there's something going on around me that's causing me to feel that way. So I am mindful of it. But like I said, it doesn't always have to be negative triggers. Even positive triggers or life-changing triggers can have, this impact. Right now, I'm also going through some life-changing aspects of my life. I just got engaged, and I'm preparing to make another life change where my living situation is going to be different, where my fiance and I will be living in the same place. And it's not just about the life change, but at the same time, it's kind of like it's a trigger of, yes, you are making a change, but you're also letting go of part of who you are, and letting go of things that you've become so attached to, and things that you've kind of built for yourself. You're kind of letting go of part of that to be able to adapt and become a part of something else. So even though they are positive things, they are still triggers nonetheless, and they are life-changing triggers, which are pretty big and can still have an effect on you. And just because they're good triggers, or I should say good things, doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to have the positive effect that you hope for. Sometimes it can trigger you and kind of feel heavy on you, or kind of weigh on you, and until you're passed through these feelings and these depressive moments, you have to kind of like just keep balance as best as you can, and keep managing it, and be, I guess, a little bit more mindful of the things around you. So it is very important, and I hope that, for the listeners out there who are listening, get something out of this and understand, how these triggers can affect ourselves. Ourselves meaning, people with bipolar, or people with a mental illness, or people who are autistic. All these outside things can have such a big impact on our lives. What may seem small to the everyday person, to the person with bipolar or mental illness or autistic, it can have a very big effect. And just because the people who are around you see it differently, and it's probably small to them, they should probably think about it before they approach it or wonder what's going on. They should probably make themselves self-aware that maybe something I'm doing could have a big impact on my loved one who has bipolar, or who has a mental illness, who is autistic. The surroundings, everything that we do in our everyday lives can be so impactful. To a child who's autistic, noise can be so impactful to that person. Change can be so impactful. To myself, bipolar, changes, big changes can have a big impact. Like I said, seasonal changes can have a big impact on my life. There are so many different variables, and to everybody who's bipolar or have a mental illness or autistic or whatever their situation may be, everybody's is going to be slightly different. It's not going to be copy and paste like I've said before. It's going to be, once again, it's like we all have fingerprints, but ours are all unique to ourselves. So what might affect one person one way might affect another way. So it's very important to your support group, or the people that you're around on an everyday basis, people who love and care about you, or even just your regular coworkers or people that you spend time with. It's important that they're aware just as much as you have to be self-aware of what's being done, or what's being said, or what's going on around you that could ultimately have an effect on your loved one, or on your, in this case, loved one who has bipolar or has a mental illness or who's autistic. It's important for those on the outside to be self-aware of this, because you are having an impact on our lives. So I guess I just needed to put this out there. I need to speak about it. I needed, I guess, because this is what I've been feeling lately, and since I've been going through this crash, I needed to kind of express what's been going on in my head, and to put it out there to all the listeners, and hope that for those of you that are in the mental illness or bipolar or autistic community like myself, who are living with it on an everyday basis, I hope this helps, and hopes it's relatable to all of you, and can kind of maybe help the way you do things, or help you be able to speak about it to the people in your life, or help with the people in your life to set boundaries, and so you both understand each other and make it easier for each other to be able to live with and coexist within each other's lives. So I do hope this really helps, because to me this was a very important episode, because like I said, I've been riding a pretty good wave of mania for like at least a good 2 months now, and like anything, you can only go so high before you have to come down. It's just, it's part of life, it's nature, and that pretty much goes with anything. You can only go so high before you come crashing down. But I hope somewhere in between that, you can try to find a nice, steady medium, an even keel, which is, I know for myself who's bipolar, that's what you want, and it makes it easier to live and manage. So I hope this helped. Like I said, it's a very important episode to me. So I hope it helps somebody out there, because I know it's helped me, and I hope it helps the listeners or the families of the people who have a mental illness and they're trying to understand their loved one. I hope this gives you some perspective. So with that being said, stay healthy, stay strong in mind, but most of all, don't let the demons get you down. Later. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I'll be back with an all-new episode very soon. Until then, you can catch past episodes of Dance with My Demons podcast on anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast on. You can also catch me on Instagram at Dance with My Demons 69, on Facebook, Dance with My Demons podcast, on X at DWMD podcast 69. And also, if you or somebody you know is going through an emotional or mental crisis, 988 is the National Suicide Lifeline. Keep that in mind. We're all in this together, and everybody needs each other's help. So until then, stay strong in mind, stay strong in heart, but most of all, don't let the demons get you down. Later.